I wanted to kind of make an announcement about this. I was involved in a minor incident yesterday evening, and
Uh-oh.
I'll kind of just unpack it and we'll take it from there because I kind of feel like this is the type of stuff we need to not tolerate anymore. And so I want to know that I did everything in my power to try to combat stuff like this in a peaceful way, but in a strong way. So I was out to dinner with some friends of mine. We took a day trip from Los Angeles to Santa Barbara, and we were at dinner. And I'll mention the name of the place after I tell the story. But we're at dinner. Now, my friend, he's a somewhat loud talker. He was not being
Sure.
very loud in this, for instance, though. But he does kind of have a bit of a booming voice. And we're just talking. It's just me, him, and his girlfriend. And this gentleman comes over, and well, gentleman's putting it nicely. I don't know if that's a fair way to assess it, but this guy comes over, older guy, and he just goes very kind of rude and forceful. He was not happy, and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, they can hear you, and we can hear you too. It doesn't need to be broadcast. Just shut up, And he walks away, and we're all kind of just like shocked, like, wow, like that was, not that he had like it was just such an impolite way. It's not like he came over and he was like, "Hey, you guys are being a little loud. We can kind of hear you. Do you mind maybe like, letting your voice be a little lower?"
Yeah.
In which case we would have said sorry, we apologize, and that would have
Yeah.
been the end of it. But it was really like just rude and confrontational, and he's like glaring at us, walking back over to his table, and I kind of looked over at him and I was like, "Are you for real, dude? Like, what's your problem? Like, why are you doing this?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm serious." And I was like, "Oh, okay,
Okay.
buddy. Good for you. You're a tough guy. Good for you." And then he goes, "Fuck you." And I go, "Fuck you, pal." Like right back at you. I have one of those too. And then he starts saying something else, and I was like, "You know what? And quick disclaimer here: I'm not proud of all my actions, but I'm gonna
Sure.
tell the straight
Sure.
up truth of what happened." He goes, I gave him a middle finger back. And he starts saying some stuff, and I was like, "Dude, if you have something to say, why don't you come back over here so we can hear you? I can't hear you." And he goes, "What are you gonna do about it?" And he stands up. So I stand up and I say, "I will send you back to your time, old man. That's what I'll do about it." And at this point, someone like a busboy or something saw us both stand up and kind of jumped up and starts getting in the middle. And the guy goes, "Fuck you, faggot."
Oh.
And I was like, "What did you just say?" And he goes, "Fuck you, faggot." And I was like, "What's your problem, man? What if I'm gay?" And he goes, "You probably are, you fucking fag." Um, and I was like, "Wow." And then the guy goes back to his seat because the bus boy was in the middle, and I'm just like, are people allowed to talk to customers like that? Are they allowed to use slurs at people? You're allowed to use slurs here? And the guy goes, "Whoa, dude, look, I'm just trying to stop a fight right now, okay? I'm just here trying to stop a fight from happening. That's all I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to do. I didn't call you anything. I'm just trying to stop a fight right now. That's my only priority." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, I get it." And I was like, "Please go get a manager right now." And the guy was like, "Absolutely." So, I mean, the busboy was doing his job.
Right.
So he goes, he
Okay.
gets a manager, and I told him what happened. I'm like, "Look, things got a little heated. This guy was very rude, and it got heated. But he called me a faggot, a fucking faggot, actually. If we're gonna
Yeah.
be, totally verbatim here,
Sure.
and that's not okay. You can't talk to people like that. I would appreciate it if you would ask this guy to leave. Like that's not okay in
Mm-hmm.
this establishment." She goes over, talks to this guy. She comes back over, and she goes, "So he's saying that you were saying stuff to him too?" And I was like, "Yeah, there was an exchange, sure, but I think this guy really crossed the line."
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "He doesn't really think that's that big of a deal." And so my friend goes to just try to clarify what happened. They're like, "Wait, is he denying that he said that slur to my friend? Like, is he denying that he said that?" And she said, "No, he's not. He said that he said that, and he called you that. He doesn't think that's that big of a deal, though. And, he even said he has a sister who's gay." And I'm like, "Well, wait a second. So you're saying that type of language, that's okay. You're allowed to call somebody that in your establishment." And she says, that's not what I'm saying at all. And I'm like, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not making this guy leave. He's fine. So then she starts saying he uh, was dropping names. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, well, he
Dropping
knows some people in
names?
town. He says, well, yeah, that's what she said. And she goes, he said he's an attorney. To which my buddy, real quick, was like, so am I. Because my buddy was, or
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And, she goes, well, he says he's friends with the owner. And I was like, so this behavior is okay, is what you're saying. And there was more of a talk. And eventually she said, look, he's a Trump supporter, pretty much saying that justified his behavior. She wasn't saying he was a Trump supporter, putting him
Oh.
down, but
Okay.
pretty much saying, well, he is a Trump supporter, saying basically like, well, of course he calls strangers faggots because he's a Trump supporter. Pretty much, I mean, and it was really like just this is normal now was pretty much her message to me. Was pretty much saying like, yeah, this is normal, and we're not going to do anything about it because this guy might have money. And she even said like, look, it's a small town. And I was like, so basically, gay slurs are okay in your establishment. You're the manager here, and gay slurs are okay in your establishment. You know, if it comes from somebody that might have money, might know people in town, that's okay behavior here. And she's like, I'm not saying that. And I'm like, well, you're displaying that. You're not doing anything. You're not doing your job. And then she goes, well, clearly you care more about this issue than me. And I was like, well, that's a shame. And she's like, I'm not saying I don't care about it. Like, she backpedaled a bunch here.
Massively.
And she's like, look, I just feel like I'm dealing with two extremes. And I was like, it's extreme to not want to be called a faggot in a public establishment. And that if it happens, that something's done. That's extreme. And she's like, no. And I was like, well, what is extreme? And like, what's extreme about me? She did not have an answer. And she's like, look, I guess you feel like I'm not doing enough. I was like, you're not doing anything. She's like, well, I feel like I'm being attacked. I'm like, you're not being attacked. You're being asked to do your job. I don't envy your position right now.
Yeah.
But you have a choice. You either tolerate that or you don't. And she's like, well, in today's climate. And I was like, let's talk about today's climate. In today's climate, more than ever before, it's not okay to be passive. It's not okay to accept this as normal. And if you're going to do that, I will never step foot in this establishment again, first of all. And it will be known that this is normal. We ended up leaving. Nothing happened to that guy. They did not do anything we didn't ask for anything, but they didn't offer like, hey, could we comp anything? Could we offer you nothing was made to reconcile. And nothing was done to that gentleman. The name of the establishment is Enterprise. It's I believe Enterprise Grill or something like that. There's a location in Santa Barbara. That's where I was. There's also a location in Santa Monica. I will be writing the Better Business Bureau. I'll be putting a Yelp review. I'll be putting a TripAdvisor review. I'll be putting Facebook, the whole nine yards. Because, and this isn't, I'm trying not to come across as like, oh, poor me. I'm not a victim here at all. Like, I'm fine. Like the worst that could have happened is I would have had the embarrassment of telling people I got in a fight with somebody 30 years older than me. And even though I'm a small guy, I would have won this one. Okay, I would have beat this guy. And then I would have had to been like, well, shit, that's a drag. The last time I got in a fight, I was 12 years old. So I guess at least I would have went down with the 2-0 record. Yeah. But anyway, my point in bringing all this up is that this can't be normalized. And I just want to know that I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that it's not normal. And I'm gonna write to their owner. Apparently, this is a friend of his. And I'd like to let my platforms know that this happened, that this was the establishment it happened at. And this is an establishment that passively tolerates homophobia and racism. Here's something I forgot. Here's another point I forgot. I was getting it because my friend pointed out, he's like, look, you realize that when he used a slur like that, that's when a line was crossed.
Sure.
Like, that's not okay. And this manager actually said, and again, I know the language has been harsh in this clip, but I am going to say verbatim what happened. I think that's kind of important to note here. But the manager actually said, there was a woman a few weeks ago that said nigger, And I told her if she said that again, we'd have to ask her to leave.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so you tolerate slurs of all kinds. Is that your point at telling me this? You're an equal opportunity tolerant when it comes to different slurs, whether it be racial slurs or homophobic slurs. You let them all in, and you'll just get a warning. You'll just get a slap on the wrist. I was like, that's great, great management. Great management. You're doing your job. And at one point she said, I'm going to reflect more on this. And I was like, okay, hashtag thoughts and prayers. Good, good.
We'll do some reflection.
Do some reflection. Do some reflection. Look in the mirror and say, I'm part of the reason Trump's president. Do that. Do that.
Yeah.
But so it was a pretty shitty experience.
So what I get though is that this is like, it shows a good example of the normalization of shitty behavior.
Yeah.
Because of who, like, I think it's less about him being a supporter of Trump and more of, oh, this guy knows people. He knows the owner,
Yeah.
or he's friends with the owner. And so, oh, that's okay. He's my friend. He can get away with being a dick. And we're not going to kick him out. So it's for me, I see it's one of those things. Because, hey, at least she gave a warning to the person who gave the racial slur. I mean, I guess I'm a little less surprised and not as like hugely outraged. No, and don't get me wrong, like obviously you shouldn't say those things because that's being a complete dick. I just live in an area where it's filled with these kind of people.
Yeah.
Where people like us, people like me, are the outside of the norm. And I'm not saying I had a lot of bad interactions with people in the area, but I do know, I have gotten into some arguments, and I certainly know my area pretty well in the way that it kind of tilts politically. So I live.
Well, that's
in
the thing, man. I mean, this is
area.
Santa Barbara, California, which is
where you're not used to this
not
stuff.
as progressive as LA,
Exactly,
by
but
any means, but still like a relatively, it is a relatively wealthy area too. So I'd imagine there are some, and it's pretty older. There's a lot of, retirees there.
Well, you mentioned
so I'd
that
imagine
this
it
is
is more of a mixed bag politically.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you did mention this is an older guy, an older gentleman with using that word loosely, obviously. But no, I think what it is that, partly this behavior gets normalized, and I think this guy was probably always like this, a dick to other people.
Yeah.
Like, because this started over somebody being too loud for his tastes. Turn down your hearing aid, dude.
mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think this guy is empowered now. And that's my
the
reason
point.
for bringing this up. My reason for bringing this up is not to say, like, I got in an argument, look at me. Like, my reason for bringing this up is, like, people like this are empowered now. And if we don't stand up, this is going to be the new normal. And I can't at least stand up to the best of my ability. That's why... I'm using my platforms to tell this story. I'm saying the name of the place is Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the restaurant. They have locations in Santa Barbara and in Santa Monica. If this is something you care about, don't go there. I will be writing the Better Business Bureau. I will be posting a Yelp review. I will be writing the restaurant themselves. I will be doing all those things.
So, Ron, it's not so much the behavior of the guy that got you upset, obviously. It's really the behavior of the establishment itself for not taking into your concerns into light and obviously pulling some sort of favoritism to somebody who decides to drop names or who's friends to the owner.
Oh, yeah, and passively accepting that kind of behavior. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if people get in a little bit of a heated argument and, FUs are exchanged. But I mean, and again, I'm not saying I was totally on the right. I lost my cool too.
Yeah.
I didn't start it. I responded, but I lost my cool too. But I did not call him a slur or anything like that. I did not cross that line. I did say I'll send you back to your time, old man. Which I'm not proud of.
No,
but I'm going to be honest. I was wrong. I'm not proud of my behavior. The last time I got into an altercation, I was 12 years old. So I'm a little rusty. Yeah. I was a little rusty.
So you're not really read up on fight etiquette at this point?
No, I am
No,
very
no.
much not my thing. I'm very much a pacifist. This was a very out of left field situation for me and
Sure.
response for me. I've gotten arguments before, but they've always remained fairly civil as far as an argument goes. And
Right.
that's why, I mean, because I even kind of gave that guy an olive branch. Like, I was like, whoa, dude, you don't call people that. What if I'm gay? And then, his response was, "You probably are, you fucking faggot." Um, Pretty much saying, "Yeah, this I'm coming from a place of hate.
Yeah,
It's not like I
and
just
it's
got
like,
really mad and chose my words poorly. I genuinely don't like you. And I'm an old, bitter, conservative man, so you might be gay because you give a shit about the clothes you have on your body and your hair looks nicer than mine. So you might be gay.
so how's that a
So I'm
bad
just
thing?
gonna run with that."
How's that any of that a bad thing? I don't quite understand how, like, okay, and like, so what if I was? What's wrong with that? Are
Right.
you
I mean,
somebody who
and
hates
that
people?
exactly.
Do you hate people
Right.
because they have a different sexual orientation than you?
Yes, he
Who might
does. I
have?
mean, yeah, exactly. He does.
That
I mean,
that's the
he
problem
apparently
with
has a
this.
gay sister, but I'm sure that's not true. And yeah, I mean, he does. He's a homophobic guy, and that behavior is okay in that establishment. This
Well,
manager
you
made
would
it very
find.
clear to me that she doesn't. I mean, she even said verbatim, "You care more about this issue than me. I don't care. I care more about maintaining peace in my small town. I care more about this guy's money. I care more about the fact that he might be that he says he's an attorney, although my buddy's an attorney too. I care more about the fact that he might be friends with the owner.
Mhm.
That he comes in here once a week. She made it very clear that all of this, and that's saying to me, like, okay, so you're making a business decision here. Well, then you have to deal with the consequences
Of the
of the
businesses.
other end of that
Right,
business
right.
decision. Because you're saying homophobia and racism is okay here if you're spending money. And okay, well, that has consequences because there's some people out there, there's some consumers out here, I'm one of them, where if that's your platform, I ain't showing up anymore. I'm not okay with that. If someone can call somebody a nigger in your establishment,
Right.
if somebody can call somebody a faggot in your establishment and they can stay, that's not okay. I don't want to be part of an environment like that. I mean, I've been in red states where there's been some of that going on, and they were like, okay, that's the line, you got to go.
Yeah.
I've been in red states where that's been the case. And I'm in Santa Barbara, California, at a seafood restaurant that has a branch in Santa Monica, and that behavior's normalized because it's Trump's America. I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to take that laying down. And I don't think anybody else should. And I think that people, especially in the area, need to know about this. And like I'm not saying like don't feel bad for me. Don't oh poor Ron. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Like I'm not the person. I mean the guy.
You're
I'm not gay. First of all, not that it matters, but I'm not.
Well, what you're
Uh,
saying is that you're not the aggrieved party in this, is that you're looking
I'm
out for
not.
other people. You're looking out for the
Right.
gay person that goes into that establishment and has an unfortunate run-in with this guy, or people like him, or the black person that comes in and, has to overhear this kind of speech directed, maybe not at them, but at people like them. And you're looking out for that guy or for that person, that family, whatever. And because you don't want them to be exposed to that, I completely understand. This
Yeah,
isn't
and I
a
don't
for
want
you
this
issue.
normalized. If
Exactly.
you're gonna make like again, they make that business decision that this speech is okay because they're spending money. Okay, well then you know what? There's other patrons, and our money is just as green. We're not okay with that being your policy. So people ought to know that that's the policy, and like I'm gonna do everything in my power
Hmm.
to let they know. Enterprise, Enterprise in Santa Barbara, seafood restaurant in Santa Barbara, Enterprise. Think of Star Trek. By the way, not a Star Trek themed establishment. By the way, which
Right.
already got a minus in my book, but Enterprise in Santa Barbara and Santa Monica. Racism, homophobia flies there as
So
long as your money's still green.
so what you're saying is, on Enterprise, make it no.
Make it no.
Make it
Don't
no.
beam me up, Scotty.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYT Nation.